For nearly 7,000 years, the High Elves cultivated a shining, magical kingdom, hidden deep within the forests of northern Lordaeron. But 5 years ago, the undead scourge invaded Quel'Thalas and drove the elves to the brink of extinction. Led by the evil Death Knight Arthas, the scourge destroyed the mystical Sunwell, thereby severing the elves from the source of their arcane power. Though the scars of that conflict are evident, the remaining elves have banded together and retaken much of their homeland. Calling themselves Blood Elves, these grim survivors are committed to regaining the vast powers they once commanded. Inspired by the leadership of their beloved prince, Kael'thas Sunstrider, the Blood Elves now seek new sources of arcane magic and the means of defending their land against the undying horrors of the Scourge. As one of the few surviving Blood Elves, you must master your thirst for magic and help shape the destiny of your people.
What's up, folks? Today, I thought I would talk a little bit about the history of the Blood Elves, the story behind their race. But I'm sure you already came to that conclusion. I guess we will begin where they found Quel'Thalas. So, about 7,000 years before the First War, there was a group of exiled High Elves that landed at Lordaeron, and they were looking for a new place to live. These High Elves had a leader named Dathramar Sunstrider. They were completely cut off from the Well of Eternity, which means they no longer had the gift of immortality. A lot of the High Elves died along the way, and they were also forced to leave the place they originally settled at, which was known as Tristful Glades, because there was an unknown evil that drove them to insanity by the masses. They continued further into the land and made enemies with the tribe of trolls known as the Zul'Aman, who controlled most of northern Lordaeron. The elves ended up reaching a land they felt reminded them of their home, and they founded Quel'Thalas. They used a vial of water that they stole from the original Well of Eternity and created a fountain at a convergence of light energies in their new land. This fountain was called the Sunwell, and its arcane magic was so powerful that it fed all of the High Elves on Azeroth and the entire world. Then Silvermoon City was created, and they cast an enchantment on the forest to keep the land in an eternal springtime. The Magi among the elves created a magical shield to protect their land from invasion and threats that Quel'Thalas would endure for the next 4,000 years. The Amani trolls were angry that they were forced out of their land, so they made an attempt to destroy the entire elven civilization. The king of Quel'Thalas, Anastarian Sunstrider, knew they were outnumbered, so he looked for allies to help them in the war, which is when they made an alliance with the human nation known as Erethdor. The elves instructed some of the humans how to wield magic, and with the help of the humans of Erethdor and the new Magi, the elves were able to destroy the trolls' base. Quel'Thalas was saved, and the High Elves pledged their loyalty to Erethdor and the bloodline of its king, Thoradin. With the alliance between Erethdor and Quel'Thalas, the mage city of Dalaran was created, and humans and elves alike would study magic there for years to come after. But then the Second War came, and the elves didn't really take any interest in it, but they still helped the alliance of Lordaeron with support because the last descendant of King Thoradin, namely Lord Anduin Lothar, was in charge of the Alliance military forces. During this time, the Horde began to recruit Amani trolls, and not long after the Horde burned down the borderlands of Quel'Thalas and killed large numbers of the High Elves, needless to say, the elves were furious, and they put all their resources into the war after that. The orcs and trolls of the Horde achieved their goal by the time the elves had driven them back. They managed to destroy the runestones that powered the arcane shield that covered Quel'Thalas. The warlock known as Gul'dan used the stones to power his Altar of Storm. The Alliance did end up winning the Second War, and most of the defeated orcs were moved into internment camps. But it cost a lot to rebuild after the war, alongside the costs of running these internment camps that they imprisoned the orcs in. The human nations, who now had no common enemy, began to argue over territory, and then out of nowhere the High Elves decided to secede from the alliance and blamed the humans for the forests of Quel'Thalas that were burned. Then the Third War came, and the evil prince known as Arthas Menethil, who would later become the Lich King, laid waste completely to Kael'thas. He destroyed the majority of the populace and reduced much of the land to ash while trying to make it to the Sunwell. Some who were destroyed by Arthas would rise again. His rival Sylvanas Windrunner was raised into undeath with the intent to serve the prince as a powerful banshee. The undead armies closed in on the Sunwell, and the High Elf by the name of Darkhan Drathir wanted to get on the Lich King's good side. So he helped Arthas by lowering the shields that encased the Sunwell. This resulted in an explosion that knocked the elf unconscious and scattered the majority of the Sunwell's powers all about. And then there's a wizard by the name of Boril. He's also known as Krasus and the dragon Coriostraz. He sensed all of the power that was released, so he trapped part of it inside of an avatar who appeared to be a young human girl, and her name was Avina. Arthas was still unaware of what Boril had done, and he used what was left of the Sunwell's power to reanimate Kel'Thuzad as a powerful lich. By the end of it all, King Anastarion was dead, along with the members of the Convocation of Silvermoon, which was the ruling cabinet of the High Elves. Sylvanas' right-hand man, Lor'themar Theron, took up temporary leadership for the High Elves because the bloodline heir, Prince Kael'thas Sunstrider, was in Dalaran studying. The High Elves began to grow apathetic, and they became addicted to the Sunwell's arcane magic. Being engulfed by these energies 24/7 completely changed their race. The source of their magic was now gone, and they were left suffering withdrawal. Prince Kael'thas was the last of the royal line of the elves, and he was also a member of the ruling council of Dalaran, known as the Kirin Tor. When the Sunwell was invaded by Arthas and the Scourge, he was studying magic in Dalaran. When he returned to see his home was in ruin and his race brought near extinction, he noticed that the survivors were all extremely apathetic due to the loss of their magic. Kael'thas rallied the remaining elves and renamed their race the Sin'dorei, which is otherwise known as the Blood Elves, to honor those who were slaughtered by the Scourge. Kael'thas became consumed by revenge and gathered the healthiest warriors and joined the battle against the Scourge and Lordaeron, while Lor'themar and a ranger by the name of Haldoran Brightwing stayed behind so they could protect the land and hopefully find a cure for the elves. However, the Alliance forces did quite the opposite of welcome Kael'thas and his people. Instead, they were met with hostility from a human who was known to be prejudiced, named Grand Marshal Garithos. Garithos sent the Blood Elves on the most difficult missions until Kael'thas had no choice other than to work with the Lady Vastia and the Naga under her. Of course, eventually Garithos learned that the elves were working with the Naga and lost all his trust. He locked the Blood Elf soldiers in the dungeons in Dalaran and sentenced them all to execution. Lady Vastia arrived in the nick of time to break free the elves. She brought them to a portal that Kel'Thuzad opened during the Third War to bring Archimonde the Defiler into Azeroth. Kael'thas and his followers came with the Naga through the portal and ended up in Outland. Then they met the only being that was able to put an end to their thirst for arcane energy, Illidan Stormrage. Kael'thas and his people stayed in Outland. However, Romath was sent back with a message to the Blood Elves still in Quel'Thalas. He completed his mission and spread the teachings of Illidan and told them that Kael'thas might return one day to lead his people to this paradise. Romath has stayed in Quel'Thalas ever since that day, rebuilding and waiting for the prince's return. Many months later, the traitor Darkhan, who is now a powerful soldier of the Scourge, came back to Quel'Thalas. He battled Avina, who was made the avatar of the Sunwell by Boril, and a powerful group of heroes with the help of blue dragons. Darkhan was eventually defeated. Avina decided to stay in the ruined city under the protection and care of Haldoran and Lor'themar and begin reconstruction. There's only a select few that know of Avina's secret power. Lor'themar and his people work hard to keep the secret safe today. In the meantime, the new collection of elven magi with Romath began the process of tutoring the others of their race to manipulate arcane energies. Silvermoon rose again, and the Blood Elves began retaking parts of Eversong Forest. They gained hope by the promise of Kael'thas' return, and the weary people put all their focus into regaining their strength and creating a new, prosperous path into the future. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. If there's any requests for something you would like to learn about, just let me know, and I can probably make a video about it.